In this video, we are going to do a complete walkthrough of the newest version of the xTool Creative Space software. If you are new to xTool, this is going to be great for beginners to fully understand what this software can do. If you've recently changed your machine or updated your software, stick around because I think this video will help you as well. Hey, I'm Sarah. You're watching Creative Ramblings. We talk a lot about lasers on this channel, specifically xTool. And today's video is focused on the most recent updated version of their software, XCS or xTool Creative Space. This software powers every machine they make, so not just lasers, but also their apparel printer and their metal fab system. Everything they make can be powered with XCS. Today we are focusing on how to use the software with lasers. For reference in this video, I'm going to hook up my software to my P2S. There is a little bit of a difference when you go from machine to machine, and the biggest difference you're going to see depends on whether or not the machine has a camera. So the P2S does have a camera. I am also going to show you a little bit of the S1, which has a marking system. You also find this in the M1 Ultra and some other machines. And then I'm going to show you just a few different features that you might find in an F series machine, specifically the F1 Ultra. For the most part, the software is the same for all machines, but I'm going to try to do my best and point out the differences. So to get started, you need to download the software. I'm using a Windows computer for this. It works on Mac, and there is also an app for it. You're going to get the best, fullest version if you use it on a computer. I have updated to the latest version, and I'm connecting my machine via Wi-Fi. You can do it with Wi-Fi or USB. So my P2S is turned on, it is vented out a window, and there is a piece of basswood on the grates. So let's open up XCS. Of xTool Creative Space. And so I can see on here my most recent projects. Then I can see some pre-made projects that are relevant to the season or the holiday that I'm in. All kinds of different inspirational pieces on here. Up on the top right, I can open up an existing file or I can create a new project. If we go way up here to this little arrow, we can check for software updates. So if we are not running the same version of the software, you can check here and see if there is an update waiting for you. You can also come to settings here. These are just your software settings. These aren't related to any machine, just a software. So a couple things to keep in mind here. You can change the measurement units. So if I have inches or millimeters, that is going to apply to everything I'm doing. There's also a good amount of software settings as we go all the way down here. It's a great place to look for software updates as well. There are some notifications about news and projects that you're running. And now let's move over to the left-hand side. First thing I'm going to do is log in. By logging in, I'm going to have access to a few things I'm going to show you a little bit later, but I can change some of my account settings here, and there's nothing paid for having a login. I think everyone should have an XCS login. You're going to be able to save some files, and then if you do ever want to use some of the premium services, you're going to do that through your login. So underneath the home screen, we have something called My Space. This allows you to save projects essentially in their cloud, and there is a limited amount of storage up here. I do this if I'm going to switch computers. So if I'm on my laptop now and I make this acrylic sign, but then I want to work on my desktop, I can access it from anywhere that I have XCS available. We're going to skip Adam for just a second. The support center is going to take me out to a learning center. There's a lot of great videos and tutorials here. And the Academy is very similar. It's going to take me out to a website that offers all kinds of courses. And then we have the Material Easy Set library. There are other ways to access this. This is just from the home screen here. What we're able to do in the Easy Set library is look up any form of material. There are hundreds. So let's say we want this red rose plywood. If I click on it, I'm able to choose the machine that I'm using, laser power, how it's being processed, and if I want to cut or engrave. And then it's going to give me some suggested settings. So this is a really good thing to have. We're going to talk more about this when we get into materials. So for now, we can close this out. The final thing over on the left-hand side here is Atom. This video is being filmed in May of 2025, and Atom is brand new. It replaces what was previously called Design Find. And this is kind of a community here. It's a place where people like me and you can create designs and upload them into Atom, and other people can use them. In turn, we can also use some of the designs that other people have uploaded. So it's a great place to find projects, and it's just a great inspiration as well. So there's a lot going on in Atom. It is, if you have your own designs and your own projects you want to do, you don't need to use this, but I definitely suggest you check it out and see if it's something that you're interested in. So we are going to close out the Atom tab. That takes us back to our main page here. So that was just the home page of the software. So now let's get into the canvas and start working on a project. So to do that, I'm going to click New Project right on the top here. This is the main canvas for xTool Creative Space. This is where we're going to work on all of our projects. First thing I want to do is connect a machine. So that is done over here on the right. And this tells me that my P2S has previously been connected. If you've never used the software before, this is going to prompt you to connect a device for the first time. So there's a couple little buttons over here that we can use. I'm going to go to this first one, which is switch or connect a device. If you have multiple machines, they're going to be listed down here, but we're going to go up to the P2S and just hit connect. You can connect a machine with Wi Fi or USB. Sometimes when you're wanting to do Wi Fi, like I am here, you may need to connect it via USB the first time you do it, and then you can pull out that USB cord and then connect it via Wi Fi. Oh, and I'm being prompted for a firmware option here. So I'm going to go ahead and update that. So we'll pause this for just a second. It's always important to update when prompted. So right away, the camera inside the P2S is going to take a picture of what's in the machine. But for now, I'm going to right click on that and I'm going to hide that background. We're going to show you how to do that and manually take a picture in just a moment. Let's continue focusing on the machine up here. So the second button in is device settings. Now, earlier we talked about software settings. These are settings that are specific to your device. So you're going to see all kinds of things you need to know about it, firmware versions, serial number, all kinds of things. You're going to have some device settings here. Some of this may be important to you. Exhaust fan, you may want to turn that off. If you have an inline fan, you can adjust your fan speeds, some noises that it makes. There is just a ton of information in here. So if you need to work on settings that are specific to your machine, that is where you find them. And then this last button over here will take you to the kind of how we saw the Academy and support on the homepage. This is going to take you to more P2 specific guides and tutorials. So now let's go up to this top black bar here, and we're going to start on the very left. This is your main menu. A lot of these things are also going to be duplicated in other shortcuts, but you can access just about anything here, including software settings. The next button is your save button. And then we have this button. This is going to take you to MySpace. We looked at that and the original main homepage where you can save some things to the cloud and then access them on another computer. I do prefer to save locally whenever I can. Undo and redo button. And then we have this canvas here. This is where we're working. You can add more canvases. So if I click on canvas, I can add a second canvas within this same project. It's called Untitled up here. So I can have canvases within that same project if I wanted to. And then I can just toggle between them here. I can also click on the three dots and delete them if I need to. Next up is our processing mode. So I'm using the P2S and I am processing on the slats. But on any of your machines, if you have an accessory like a conveyor or a screen printer or a rotary, you're going to select that and your canvas is going to change a little bit. But for right now, we are just processing a flat piece of wood on the slats. Moving right along, here we have our camera button. So I'm going to hit refresh background. It is going to take a picture of the material. There are cameras on the F1, the M1, the P2. The S1 has a marking system and the M1 Ultra has a marking system. So, depending on your machine, you may get a little bit different look here. So, I am going to show you how to use that marking system for the S1 and the M1 Ultra because I think they're really important. So, I've gone ahead and connected my S1 here, and this doesn't have a camera, it has a marking system. First, we have this thing marked new. I can go into the XCS app and actually take a picture of the material on the base plate of my S1 and import it into here. I've done it a couple times. I've actually done it with my M1 Ultra. I don't love the results. I think marking is very easy. I'm going to show you how to mark. So, the first thing we want to do is put a piece of material into the machine. And then I want to manually move the laser. So this red crosshair is right on top of the material. And then I can hit auto measure. Now I have now I have a measurement for the thickness of the piece of wood that is in the S1. So now let's go to marking. Essentially what we're doing is marking off the space that I want to engrave or cut in. So I have a rectangular piece of basswood in there and we're going to mark off the whole thing. So the first thing I want to do is move the laser head to the top left corner and then hit the button on the machine. And we have our first point. Now I'm going to go down to the bottom right. Now I know that this is where I want to put my design. So I can end the marking, hit done. This is my working area. So now I can come over and I can do these same things that we talked about with the P2. They just all need to be within that area. Marking should not be scary. You don't need a camera to work with a laser. I love my S1 and my M1 Ultra as well. They both have marking systems. So that is the difference between a laser with a camera and a laser without a camera. Here on the P2, I am able to see exactly where my piece of basswood is so I can place my designs. The P2 has two cameras, so there is a second button here called a close shot. So I'm able to move that around and maybe look right at this top corner here, and I'm going to get a close-up shot of that corner. This works really well when I have a detailed graphic on here and I want to make sure it's lining up on the material perfectly. This just gives me another view of that. I can right click and delete that close view. I can also delete the background again, which I will in just a moment here. Next up is auto measuring, and this is going to tell us the thickness of the material. But in order to do that, we need to have something on the canvas. So we're going to come back to that. We're also going to come back to material. Now let's go over to the left side of the software and move down this way. This top button here is for importing designs that you have found elsewhere or you have made on your own or you took a photo of. We are going to work on a project a little bit later using that button. Then we have text, which is really just as simple as adding text. And when I add text, I am able to change this to whatever I want it to be. But if I click on that, I have opened up a whole new set of commands up on top here, including sizing. So I can size it by pulling these arrows too, or I can just change the sizing here. This little button is a lock button, so it keeps the ratio. If I were to unlock that, then I can change just the height or just the width. I prefer to keep it locked. You can align things, you can reflect them. There's a lot of different ways that you can play around with text here. We also have a whole bunch of font options here. There are xTool fonts, but if I keep scrolling down, I'm going to have access to all the fonts on my computer as well. So a lot of options. And if I just scroll over them, my text changes so I can see what they look like. And then you can go regular, bold, italic, all of that. If I choose a font that is, let's see here, a kind of cursive font, let's change the words here. And we type the word welcome. And let's say I want to cut out this word welcome. When I cut it, it is going to cut along each individual line here. So it would actually cut the E out of the L, if you can see where they overlap there. And I really don't want that. I imagine you don't want it either. If we were to cut the word welcome, we would want all of these cursive letters to be together. So that is where the weld button comes in handy. Do not use weld until you have perfected everything here. It's exactly what I want. I'm going to click weld, and it's going to attach anything together that has overlapped. So that is a really nice feature. You're going to use that if you use any kind of font. I can also unweld, go back to what I was doing. Offset, we're going to touch on when we do shapes in a little bit. This little prompt that comes up over here, let's click on that. That, if I click and drag, that allows me to curve my text in any way I want. So that's kind of a cool feature if you are making a design. So we're going to delete the text and move on to the next item, which is basic shapes, lines, rectangles, and circles. Just allow you to make shapes. Almost the same options are available up on top here. We can edit some nodes, which allows you to take these and kind of move them around. It makes a little more sense when you have a complicated object and you want to move some things around slightly. Hit done there. An offset is pretty cool. It's just going to add an outline or an inner offset to the shape you have. So if this is my shape, I click on it, I click on offset, and I can drag this to be nice and big or nice and small. I can make it sharp corners or rounded corners. I can do outer shapes or inner shapes. There's a lot you can do with an offset. It's a great way for outlining pieces, but they are not attached. So my offset can be moved. If I select both pieces, I've got a couple other options that open up here. The first one that I use a lot is this align tool. So if I want to put that offset right back where it started, I can hit align center and it brings everything together. You could also align it to the left or the right. Really good way to make sure that everything is aligned without, trusting your eyes. Then we have these 4 features right here, which combine your shapes or your text or whatever graphics you have in a certain way. So let me show you exactly how those work. These are only going to show up on your top toolbar when you have one or more items selected. So I have drawn 4 pairs of 2 circles. The one on the right is on top of the one on the left. So let's see what they do. Let's select the first 2, and we're going to go to this first one. This is Unite. This will combine the 2 circles and take out the stuff in between, so I can cut them out as a whole. This next one here, this is Subtract. So what this does is it takes the first circle and the top one, the item that's on top, and subtracts it from the one down below. This is Unite at Overlap. So it takes those 2 circles and it just leaves behind the piece that is united. And finally, this is Subtract at Overlap. So when I click that, it brings it together, but it doesn't really do anything when I have these selected until I go over and I set it to engrave. And you can see that it has subtracted. It is the opposite of this one here. It has subtracted the place where they overlap. So I hope that's a good understanding of what those 4 combined options do when you have 2 or more items selected. Next up, we have make a compound vector. I tend to do this when I have a lot of little pieces. It makes cutting, engraving, and scoring a lot smoother when you combine everything together. It's not going to do too much for these little pieces here, other than just make it one piece that I cannot ungroup. I can release it if I want and go back. If I just want to group things together so that when I move them around, they stick together, that's where this group and ungroup button come up here. Next up, we have this little pen tool here. It can help you make vectors. So I can draw a bunch of lines, and then I have my own shape. If I come back into that edit tool, I can do some cool things here. I can move these points around, but I could also make these points curved, and I can really get pretty detailed. Um, XCS allows you to design in this manner because I can make really detailed vectors just using this software. Get rid of that one. Moving on to this, what looks like shapes here is kind of the clip art area of XCS. And so we've got a decent amount of things to use here. It's not exhaustive, but you can get some animals and plants and shapes and borders, some patterns. There's a few things in here you can use. So just things to keep in mind if you want to use some simple pieces. Next up, we have applications, and there is a lot that can be done in the applications menu. So we are going to start with a shape, and we're going to start just with a rectangle here. And I'm going to go into grid array. And this is pretty self-explanatory. It is going to create a grid. I can dictate the number of columns, the number of rows, whatever shape I have highlighted, it's going to do that for me. I can adjust the spacing as well. Then the next application is a circular array, very similar, except it spins it around, creating kind of a cool look. Next up is a material test array. So I am going to select one shape. Let's see, let's draw a rectangle here. And a material test array is important if you are using a piece of basswood like we have in the P2. And I want to understand my settings really well. I don't want to rely on what xTool is telling me to use. I want to create my own test grid. So I'm going to come over to the right here and I'm going to click on engrave. Then, with this shape still highlighted, I'm going to click Material Test Array. What this does is it creates a grid for me. I can set the maximum power, maximum and minimum speed. I can add more or less rows or columns. Once I'm happy with that, I hit done. Everything is stuck together. If you want to run this, you don't change any settings. I would delete all this other stuff and I would just come down here to process. This would give me a beautiful test array showing me what each of these power and speed combinations can result in. I have a whole video on how to do a test array and why and when you would do a test array. So if you want to learn more about that, take a look at the video. Next up is code generation. I love this one. So if I put in a website, and this could be your website, it could be your Venmo pay link, your PayPal pay link. I can hit save, and there is a QR code. That QR code, when you scan it, is going to take you to the website that I typed in. So you can engrave this on just about any material. It is such a great feature. I really like this for creating payment signs if you are selling your goods. Now we've got a couple of features here that are newer. Smart nesting is a neat feature. So I am going to click on that. I'm going to highlight all this random stuff that we put on the page. And I'm going to say that my piece of material is 12 by 12, and I'm going to nest all of this. This is a really great way to create your pieces and conserve material. So it is going to put everything together for me in the most efficient manner. So if you want to get the most out of each piece of material, that smart nesting feature is really nice to have. Next up is batch fill. This is very similar. So if we had this little dolphin here, and I want this dolphin to go on 10 different keychains that are in my P2, I can click on this and I can frame it out and it will fill all those different pieces. I don't have that sitting in the machine right now. We just have one piece of basswood. But if you are doing a lot at a time, definitely look into the batch fill option. Two more here. Let's go down to this measurement next. So let's say that I want to measure the distance between two items. I can click on the corner of one and take it to the corner of this dolphin, and it's going to tell me the distance. I could also do it if I wanted to say from the corner of this shape to the other corner. So if you want to get really precise, this is a good measuring tool. And finally, down here is this map designer. This is a paid feature to make layered maps of anything you want. There is a trial that you can test out. A lot of laser makers use this particular map designer. And so xTool partnered with them to give you a discount. So if you're interested, check it out. It is nothing that you need to use. Finally, down here is this AI button. This is not a free feature. It does cost these credits to use, but it allows you to turn whatever descriptive sentence into a graphic. Those are all the main tools along the left. Down here, we have the arrow, which we've been using this whole time. It allows me to grab a piece and move it. If I click on the hand, I can move my canvas. So down here, if I have zoomed in quite a bit, I can use that hand to look at different parts of the canvas. I use the arrow most often. And then finally, we have layers. Um, right now, everything is on the same layer. So theoretically, I would have the same settings for everything here. But if I were to change this dolphin to be cut, I could move this to a different layer. So down here, right now it's on the blue layer. I could move it to the red layer. You can use layers to order your cutting and engraving. So if you for sure want certain things to happen first, you could put that layer first. There's a way to do this when we cut and engrave later too. You can also do this if you only want to work with the blue layer and you don't want to work with the red layer. We can hide those pieces. So if you have a really complicated design with a lot of different pieces and you want to tweak it, you might want to use your layers to help you make sense of your design and help you see the parts that you want to see. Okay, we are going to delete everything that's on our canvas and maybe make this just a little bit smaller. We're going to bring something in. This is an SVG. It's a scalable vector graphic. If you want to cut or engrave anything, the file format should be SVG. The exception to that is if you're working with a photo and you want to engrave a very detailed picture that you've taken, then it can be a PNG or a JPEG. We're going to talk about photos in a minute, but right now we're just going to focus on an SVG. So that's what this is here. So I want to engrave this, but I want to cut out around it. So I am going to come up here and use the offset tool. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to move it out of the way so I can see it a little bit better. And I only want to offset the outer shape. I don't want to offset these little kind of pieces inside the mushroom. And I want a pretty big offset here. So that's looking really good to me. So I'm going to confirm. So I want to do two things here. I want to engrave this fairy, and then I want to cut out a shape around it. So over on the right-hand side is where we choose all of those settings. First thing I want to do is come up on top and pick my material. So I am using a 3 millimeter piece of basswood, a very basic piece of wood that we can do this project on. Down here, where it says more xTool materials, if I click on that, that's going to take me back to that material easy set library that we saw at the very beginning. So I'm going to confirm this. Now I'm not clicked on anything here. I'm kind of clicked off and it's showing me that I'm engraving this and I'm scoring this. So I'm going to click on this engrave part here. Right up on top here where it says compound vector output, that means that this is set to engrave. If I were to toggle that off, it is not going to engrave or cut what is currently on the canvas. So this is really good to have if you have a lot of pieces on the canvas, but you only want to cut or engrave certain ones at a time. You can essentially ignore it and then turn it back on when you're ready to work for it. And make sure that, yes, I do have it set to engrave. And then I'm going to click on this image. This is the test array, and this tells me what the results I might get on this basswood by using these settings. So I'm actually going to go to a power of 25 and a speed of 400. And for this part that says score, I want to change that to cut, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm actually going to go with their recommended settings here of 60 and 27. You can also scroll a little bit further and you can change the speed and the power here. You can change how many passes. And then we have a couple other options here. So tab generation prevents the items from falling through. We don't need to do that right now. I would say that all three of these are actually kind of advanced options. And if you need to use them, great, but we don't need to use them for everything. So that might be something you want to choose down the road. Now I'm going to go back up and I'm going to take that picture again. I'm going to select everything and shrink it down a little bit, place it on my material. This is where we can then use that close shot to come in and make sure that I'm right up against the edge. That looks really good to me, so I can hide that close shot. And then this is where you would go into auto measure. It's already measured for me, but we're going to do that one more time. It is just going to measure the thickness, which would then in turn tell me what settings to use, but that was done automatically for me. So now that everything is ready to go, we can hit process. With an xTool laser, hitting that process button doesn't make it do anything. You do actually have to hit the button on the machine. But in this next screen, we can see what we're doing. So I can actually speed this up a little bit and it'll show me what's happening. This is going to engrave first, cut second. That is always what your machine will do by default. You can change that if you want. You probably don't want to, but if you wanted to, you could change that by using layers. So this says it's going to engrave and then cut. So now I hit start and then I go hit the button on the machine. When the project is all done, it's going to tell you it's complete, give you an elapsed time. You can go ahead and hit OK. From here, I can hit the save button and I can either save it locally or upload it to MySpace if I want it to be on the cloud. But I do like to save it locally. All of these settings that we picked here are going to be saved when I hit that save button, and then we can open the project back up if I want to create this again, and these settings will be saved. Now let's talk about engraving a photo. So I mentioned that if you're going to cut or engrave a graphic, it should be an SVG. But if we want to bring in an image, it can be a PNG or a JPEG. I have two photos we're going to work with here. This first one is a picture of a cat. It has been changed into grayscale and the background has been removed in an external program. This is the same photo before anything was done to it. Now we're going to cover some basics on photo engraving, but I do have a very in-depth video that I'm going to link below. It is on an older version of the software, but All of the language and the settings are the same. The only thing that has changed is some of the buttons have moved around. So we're going to do high level here, but if you want more details, go watch that video. If I click on a photo, the options change. On the right-hand side here, you can see that I can only engrave this, and I've got some new settings that pop up on the bottom. We also have some settings up on the top. So we have a setting called cutout, and there's a couple things to keep in mind here. When I hit cutout, the first thing that it does is give me AI cutout, which does cost credits down here. It's going to auto generate this result, so I have to wait for that, and it will remove the background and make the photo look great. But I have to pay for that. You do not have to use this feature. You can go into manual cutout, and I have an erase button here, which just means I can erase portions of the picture. I have the magic wand button here, and we're going to turn off this setting here. I can kind of click on these outer pieces and it takes them away. The problem is if it identifies like the floor color here as the same as the cat, it's going to take out portions of the cat. So the magic wand works sometimes, sometimes it doesn't. You're almost better off using this eraser button to kind of erase, pieces of the counter or the background here. You can remove backgrounds in XCS. We're doing it right now. However, I would recommend a program to do it elsewhere because you're going to get it much cleaner. You can use Inkscape, you can use Canva Pro, you can use Creative Fabrica. There's a lot of options to remove a background. So we're just going to hit cancel here. Next up is trace. I don't use this very often. If we hit trace, it is going to try to turn this into a cuttable image. If you want to cut something, bring it in as an SVG. Then we have some filters. Again, these AI filters do cost credits, but you don't have to use those. They're kind of cool if you want to look into them, but we do have some basic filters here if we want to change it. Then we also have this enhance button. This is going to cost extra as well, but we don't need to use it. Then we have the adjust button. This is all free. So we can adjust the sharpness, the brightness, and the contrast of this photo. We can also change the grayscale. Ideally, you want a picture that you're going to engrave to look like this cat on the left here. He is in grayscale. All of his features are very sharp, including the whiskers, and there is no background. This was done in Canva on their pro version. The one on the right here, it has color, it's got a lot of background, it's kind of grainy. That is not going to engrave well. So you can use the features that are here in XCS or you can use them outside of the program. So we're going to delete this photo here and focus on this little guy here. Over on the right, we do have more settings. The important one to know is this bitmap mode down here. And I go into this in that photo video on what each of these means and how picking a bitmap mode would change depend on the material that you're using. We can also talk about different directions, power, speed, all of that. Everything else is pretty much the same as far as cropping or anything for photos. Just remember that they're only for engraving, they're not for cutting. If you want to cut something, it should be an SVG. Finally, let's take a look at the F1 Ultra. So I have connected it on the top right here, and I've got a PNG and a graphic here. So the F1 Ultra has a camera and an auto measure button so we can see our background here. But the F1 Lite, and the F1 Ultra are all dual lasers. So this means there is a diode and either an IR or a fiber within of those. We do get a few different settings. Now, I have detailed videos on the F1 Ultra if you want to learn a little more, but I just want to show you a few things here. So if I click on the hello here, it's going to give me engraving or cutting settings for this basswood that is selected. But let's say I pick an acrylic option here. I now can pick the fiber laser also, and I will get some settings for that. When we scroll down a little bit, we've got pretty much the same options, but we have a few other advanced options that show up down here for the fiber laser. If I go back to our blue light and I click on this photo we have here, the F1 has some different options for settings. And this is because it's a galvo style laser. The laser head doesn't move. The light moves, but the head doesn't move. Where on the P2 or the S1, that head is moving back and forth on an X and Y axis. So now I have a dot duration, a power, and a DPI. And that is going to help me engrave a photo. Depending on the machine that you have, you're going to want to do a little bit of a deeper dive into that machine and that software. So I have videos on the S1, the M1 and the F1 Ultra. So if you want to go into those specifically, definitely check out those videos. I will link them down in the description. I hope this video gave you a really good overview of the XCS software. I try to do these every couple months or when there is a major update so you can feel really comfortable using this. If there's something I didn't cover or something you have questions on, please let me know down in the comments. And do consider subscribing so you don't miss my next video. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.